Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to our episode 24 of Amigas y Mezcal. And today is California Agave Farmer. Sorry, I needed to read from there. But welcome. Happy Monday. How's everybody doing? Let me bring in Christina. There you go. She's coming. Um, there she is.
Hi.
Hey,
Hello. How are
I'm good.
you?
And
I'm
yourself?
okay. I have had such a busy day that I'm actually looking forward to drinking today. So, how about yourself? How are you?
I'm good.
Oh,
Despeinada.
oh, you look great.
Around like always, but good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I think we both need a drink.
Yes. And,
By the way,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. I started. My iPad was dead. I'm charging it right now. My computer is dead. Charging it right now. So everything's just gonna take me a minute to settle. My computer's still not on, so it's gonna take a minute. But I'm here. Welcome everybody. Hi Rudy. Hi Mike. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, hello, guys. Thank you for coming. I love that. I think Mike is always the first one on with us.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's get started, amiga. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right, so lead it on. Go ahead. Let me get my
Yes.
phone on here.
So first, I see your shirt.
Yes. Oh, are we wearing the same shirt again?
No, we're not. I'm wearing an agave thread shirts actually.
I wore that one, but the more like yellowish
Oh
color.
yeah,
Like,
yes.
yeah, but
Yeah. No,
uh,
I've actually been with this one all day. And so I got home like 30 minutes ago and I fed my cat. I put chicken to cook. So I'm just, you know what? This is a great shirt to have anyways. Let's have it on. But what are you having with us today?
um, you mean what shirt I'm wearing?
Oh no, what are you drinking?
Oh, I was gonna share my shirt first.
Oh.
So I'm
Oh yes, I don't have that
wearing
one.
Cerrero shirt. It was the special one with LA Tequila Club.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I said I was gonna wear my agave shirt, but I've been saving that shirt for like a special occasion. Not that this is not a special occasion. Um, yeah, I want to wear it for something special. So I was about to wear it because you know me, I don't wait for like every day's a special occasion, but I think I'm really holding on to that special occasion soon.
To use it. That's good. And what are you having with us today?
So what am I having? So I'm having the Fortaleza Blanco, the lot
Mm,
one, and I'm so excited because I
I
was finally
know.
able to get the Winter Blend 2024 of Fortaleza, and I'm so excited to try it. Like I said, I don't wait to open bottles or anything, so I'm gonna try it today for the first time. And you know, I always have to have my tequilita, and this is always, I mean, my mezcal. This is always my go-to. This is my fave, the Haciendo Pongio Pechuga. So I'm gonna have this almost at the end, but I'm gonna start
Nice.
today. How about yours, friend? What do you start with?
I am going to back to an oldie but a
Uh
goodie.
huh.
I have the tequila tapatio.
Ooh,
I must start off with the
nice.
añejo, which you see I will have like a little bit left. And then we're gonna go into with the reposado.
Ooh, okay.
And then to end up with one of Eric's favorites and one of my favorite too, the Tapatio 110.
Nice.
Yes.
So it's a tapatio kind of day.
Yes, it's a Tapatio kind of day. I haven't had these in a while. Eric got this one in Mexico the last time we went in no, I forgot. I think it was September or November that we went. And they only make these ones the 1 liter in Mexico. So he's like, I'm like, tell me what to I actually let Eric choose for me today. So I'm like, it's like drink whatever you want. I'm like, no, choose for me. So he chose the whole Tapatio lineup for me.
Awesome. I like
I
that.
know. So I'm excited for that. So I am
See,
gonna start off with Añejo.
Eric chooses your bottles. My husband Juan takes care of the kids, so I choose my own bottles.
I am going to start off with the añejo. What are you starting off with?
I'm gonna have the Fortaleza de Blanco, and then I'll move on to the Reposado, the winter blend. But
Cheers. Oh, I remember
salud.
that. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Mm. This 150 is 150 is one of my faves.
This is a great añejo. I feel like the Tapatio añejo en reposado is so underrated, but this is such a good añejo.
Awesome. Yay, my
Mm.
computer turned on.
Let's get the show on the road then.
All right, let me get settled, but I have it here. So, all right, so let's start with let us know if you guys are drinking anything. What's in your copita? I know it's Monday, but it's always a good day to
It's a
drink.
great way to start the week. I mean, come on.
So go ahead. You want to do the first two, and then I'll do the last one.
Yes, I actually went to this event this weekend, and me and Eric went to this event this weekend. We saw our friend Steve that we're having on today, and it is a great event. The botanical gardens are just amazing. So this is an event called Spike, the celebration of agave. It's an event happening 2 weekends. So if you didn't go this weekend, you can definitely go ahead and go next weekend. This is in Palos Verdes. So go ahead and support. Not only are you supporting a community, you're supporting the garden, you're supporting, you know, different, just everybody's there just has something to show you about agave. So it was very interesting to talk to Steve, very interesting to talk to other people that were just newly there, but the garden is beautiful. Spiked, a celebration agave. Check it out on Eventbrite.
Awesome. All right, you want to do the next one, and I'll do the last one.
Yeah. Um, we have a plática y prueba, a mezcal ancestral with Salvador's Mezcal, Saturday, April 10th from
April,
7 p.m.
sorry, it's Thursday, April 10th.
Oh, Thursday, April 10th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at La Covina de Gloria Molina in Los Angeles. If you guys have not ever gone and had a sit down or tried, first of all, Salvadores, or had a sit down with Salvador himself, you are in for a great chat because he is so passionate and he shows it. Like he captivates you just the way he speaks about, the agave industry, his mezcal. I mean, it's wonderful.
Well,
You guys need to go talk to him.
I think if you don't know who Salvador and Flor is, I think you live under the rock because they're everywhere. They're amazing people. And yes, once you go to an event where they talk about their mezcal, their family, the culture, and so on, like they envuelven. Like you
Mhm.
just, it's a whole different experience. And yes, you don't want to miss it for
Yes.
sure.
And Amiga, there's one other event, if you don't mind me going before you do yours.
Yeah.
Um,
So
we have Los Angeles Tequila Club. LA Tequila Club is having a tequila tasting with agave luz, Tesoro Azteca, Cholo. This April the 5th at 12 p.m. in Villa Cantina in Arcadia. Tickets are available, and with your ticket, you get a cocktail, food, and the tequila tasting. And I think that Cholo is going to be presenting his high proof there. So if you guys haven't had it, it's a great time to go and taste it. And you have two other amazing brands as
yeah,
well.
yes, and then I think also the same day, there's the Sabor y Cultura event. There's a bottle share as well. I think all the details are in their web, but everything, all the money that they get, they actually goes to the. I know it's not called the Boys and Girls Club. It's called I can't remember the name,
Is
but it's for the
LA Rising?
yes, for the after school program, and that's another event that's happening too. So go to their pages, and they have more details about it. I am just very very excited about the next event because I'm actually is one that we've been working really hard in regards to. It's the tour de Agave de Mexico. So this tour is gonna we're gonna have different brands representing different states of Mexico, and they're going to talk not only about their brand, but they're also going to talk about the unique part of their state And it's going to be, I believe, 6 brands. Let me count them. So first one is going to be Hacienda Ponyo, which I'm going to be representing from the state of Michoacan. It's going to be Salvadores. They're going to represent the state of Oaxaca. Mi Lumbres is going to actually represent the state of Durango. Tesoro Azteca is going to represent Jalisco, also with Sonajero, which is a ponche. And we are going to have Cumbrita de la Sierra, which is from Guerrero, and also San Quecan, which is from Chihuahua. So it's going to be a whole different experience. We are going to have everybody talk about their brand, and then you're going to get to tour Mexico with these agave spirits. And it's going to be very, very educational. We're going to have amazing food. We're going to have amazing people, and it's going to be in El Monte, April 12th. Tickets are now on sale. So in my personal page, I already put the link. We will be sharing it. We did a giveaway yesterday, and we had 3 winners. And it's going to be a really, really exciting event. So you guys could go. If you need the link, let me know and I could send it to you. But this event also is going to be small. We're going to try to keep it small. We are going to, we want our events to have a special twist. Every time we're going to do an event, it's going to be a different theme. But not only that, we want to do it very intimate. Like we don't want it to be big and overwhelming with a lot of brands, which, I mean, it's fun, but we want it to be more educational. We want people to actually go learn about these brands and be like in a more personal level, which I think makes it very unique. I enjoy those because you actually get to know everyone. I don't really like to go to events and get like super wasted because that's not my thing. It's also about tasting and meeting new people, new family brands. So this is something that's really, really exciting. Thank you, Edgar. He said he already got my
Oh,
ticket.
he's such a supporter.
Please share the info. I will share it. And yes, I'll direct message you the link. So it's going to be very, very special. Make sure that you get your ticket because it's going to be small. It's not going to be huge.
I
So
mean,
ticket.
that sounds like an amazing event. I love the fact that you have different brands representing different states in Mexico. Just to show that tequila is not the only place that you make tequila, and Oaxaca is not the only place that you make mezcal, and Milumbres also has a mezcal, but also have a sotol.
Yes.
So if you guys haven't had his sotol, it's fire. Like, I love it.
So our events are being presented by FAM, FAM. That's the name of our little group. So do you want to guess why the FAM? What does it mean?
Flor,
Mm-hmm.
Amy,
Yes.
and Myra.
Yes, yes. And we also did it because we actually do feel like a family. We feel like we're an agave family. And Flor, very creative. She came up with it and I'm like, I love it. Let's keep.
She's amazing, honestly. She is such a great person. Working with her is so easy. She's such a great communicator. And Amy too. She's amazing to work with. She's just like está apurada aquí y allá. Like, she's amazing. So I'm very happy.
Rocio joined. So Rocio from Mezcal team, she's going to be presenting some of the brands. So we're very excited to have her because she's very knowledgeable and she's very, she also has a lot of good brands. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but come to our event. It's going to be
You're
fun.
just so excited. I'm so happy for you ladies. I think that this is going to be an amazing year for all the events coming up. And I just can't wait to see what the next one is because I know it'll be here soon.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. So with further ado, you want to present our guest for today?
Yes, so Steve, I met Steve for the first time yesterday, but I have been following him for a while now. And he is an agave farmer, but he also does many other things. I'll let him talk about all that. I first really got interested in what he was doing. He was doing a live and with another person. I'm not sure who he was, but I believe he was from Oaxaca, and they were talking about the different species of agaves, all the species, the cross species, the genetics. They were really diving deep into the agave. And I just thought that, I mean, that's amazing to me. We know how to make tequila, we know how to make, mezcal, all these other spirits, but do you really think about the plant? And the plant is so important. So I really was very intrigued with the way that he was talking, the way that he was teaching, and he's such an like smart person. I yesterday I heard him for the first time live, and he is so educational. He has such a passion, and he really just wants to teach and you know have people learn from him. So I'm just really excited that he even said yes to us. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our guest Steve from Farming and Gardening California. So if you guys haven't followed him, please go ahead and follow him. Also, I didn't know the farming is so big. Hi Steve.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How
Hi,
are both
how,
of you doing?
how are
going on?
you? Yes, welcome to Amigas y Mezcal. First, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate it. I felt like this was a very important subject that we needed to talk about because I feel that we need more education on the agaves themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely. It's that's the fun part, trying to teach people about agave.
yeah, and I know that I try to dive into the scientific part of it. It's a little my brain does not work as many people's brain does. I'm a little confused when it comes to big words, but but it's
Yeah,
really fun to just kind of like learn all these technical terms for these plants. My goodness,
yeah.
there's just so many.
It's really confusing because there's a lot of even multiple names, like nicknames in Mexico for a lot of the plants. So I mean, I try to honor the Mexican names for a lot of the plants and use the Latin name so people like know this is like what people call it in Mexico, but also what a person that's thinking about it scientifically will refer to it as, right?
Mhm.
So at least you'll always know the Latin name on all the plants I post, but then the nicknames, that one is just is crazy.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Hi,
before
Steve. Oh, I
go
just
ahead. No,
wanted to
no.
say, I think we haven't met personally, but I'm glad that you're part of our Amigas and Mezcal today. But I want to know a little bit more about you. Like how, tell us a little bit about how you started, what's your background, and how did you get on this whole topic of agaves?
Yeah. Nice meeting you as well. I first started kind of getting interested in agave when I really got out of college because when I was an adult, I had started to go to my family's farms in Mexico a lot and learn about agave and how they had been growing it for a long time. But at that point, we weren't making any money from it, so I kind of just put it to the side. And that was like 2011 when I first started getting interested in it as an adult, or at least experience with it. But that, if you remember, was actually a point when agave was on the floor, kind of like today. So my family was kind of actually making negative profit on a lot of the agave farming. So when I went to college and learned about like sustainable agriculture and different types of systems like permaculture, I wanted to try to start a farm that didn't use a well or didn't use city water, and a farm that was helping the planet, not harming it. But I didn't know what I wanted to farm. So, once I got out of college, I kind of just thought back to a lot of the experiences I had in Mexico on agave and said, how can I do it differently? So I wanted to try to continue my family's tradition of farming agave, but because it was super unprofitable for my family, I knew I had to do it completely different to how my family was doing it, right? So our agave plants in Mexico at that time, we were literally just feeding them to our cows, and because it was easier to do that than to actually load them on trucks and sell them. So we grew a monoculture of agave tequiliana in Jalisco, and here in California, I after going to college and learning about different type of permaculture farms, I realized like, well, agave could probably be a really cool part of my farm, like and I also a lot of my family also farmed cactus. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get some agave, some cactus in there, and try to incorporate a lot of like new stuff, like that people weren't really messing with. Like for instance, in California, agave and cactus, when I started farming in 2016, 17, no one talked about it like today, where there's actually like a small,
Really?
interest, and it is a very, very small interest. It's just probably like a couple dozen farmers, and in cactus, it's probably a handful of us. So
Mm.
I added with the agave and cactus different types of palms and different types of pines and mulberries, and my whole goal was just to try to get something out of the farm, but not utilize new water resources, because I took a lot of water policy classes, and I was just like, well, if I'm going to be a new farmer, I don't have the $10 million. I don't have the 200-year-old water rights in California. I had to be very creative. So, the way that I farm agave and cactus is just pretty much off of, rainwater. And, I utilize a lot of animals for,
That,
uh,
that's fantastic. So it's
pretty much
pretty
my
much its
labor.
own ecosystem.
Yeah, that was my aim pretty much, like I try to maintain all the natives and try to just utilize my agave and, cactus or palms or whatever, planting them in the sandy spots that like nature still hasn't prioritized, right?
Hmm.
So I actually have my farm kind of on top of the native landscaping there. And I still actually like irrigate a lot of the native and plant seeds of it. So I'm trying to like boost all that stuff so it actually grows better with the agave, because I noticed like, I had certain fields where I had cleared stuff, and then, it was heavy irrigation. It was just a really horrible system. So I kind of
Wow.
just doubled down on the permaculture stuff, because not only wasn't I using water, but, the first cycle of agave growing here, I would have crews of like 10 or 20 sometimes, and, it'd be in California, to have a crew of 10 people, sometimes you can be paying, $5,000 a day. It's not very profitable
Right.
farm at all at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you were saying that after school, you started getting more interested in growing
I
agaves.
have
But
yeah.
Sorry, I have a question. What was your degree and when you I don't know if you mentioned when you were in school?
Sorry, what was that? It kind of cut out for a second.
That what was I have two questions. The first one is like what was degree your degree having to do with agave? What part of what was your degree when you went to university college? And my other question, you said Jalisco. So is your family from Jalisco? You guys just actually lived in Jalisco?
Yeah. So, I mean, in college, I studied history, and then I finished that pretty much like in a year and, some change. So, I loved where I went to school, UC Santa Barbara. So, I lived on the beach and stuff. It was a really fun time. So I was like, well, I kind of want to stay here for 4 years. So, after I studied a lot of history, and, my focus was US, Mexican history, and, a lot of military history. So when I finished that degree, I kind of was just like, I don't want to move back home. I was really young. So I decided to get a second one in environmental studies. And, that's where I started learning a lot of the different stuff, like water policy and, environmental problems that were going on in agriculture, right? So the biggest problems in agriculture in California that I was starting to see were, pretty much no matter the industry that you're in, whether it's citrus, avocados, or agave now, in our case, the large majority of planted acreage is all monoculture, heavy irrigation, and, they don't really try to use a lot of the natives or try to see how, like for instance, when I started farming here in the desert, I knew I only had 2 inches of rain, right? So I wasn't going to bring alfalfa here and start a giant well. I saw, okay, what can grow with 2 inches of rain? And the biggest problem I see in California farms are just that they're trying to adapt European farming styles or East Coast farming styles to California, but we don't really have the water to do that. So I give an example. In 2011, probably the most significant water law in California was passed, which is Sigma. And when I was in college at that point, we were, studying this a lot. And Sigma basically began the groundwater regulation of, the water systems in California for farmers. So before, you had surface water that was super cheap. And then if you needed to, start a new farm, most of those farms were starting off of wells, right? So when the state said you can't abuse groundwater anymore, we don't have these aquifers in sustainability, I noticed a lot of these farmers were going bankrupt and they were having to adapt and completely change their systems, right? So when I came into farming, I knew I needed to do something from the get-go that was like dry farming, no water, because I didn't want, the government to ever have the power to decide whether my farm was profitable or not,
You need
right?
something
So
sustainable.
I'm also a
Yeah.
consultant now, and it's like that's kind of a lot of the stuff I help people with today because, 1 month to another, the state might tell them, your basin is now drawn into sustainability, and they're only given 10% of their groundwater that they had, and they have to completely change what they farm. So, I mean, a lot of the big, farmers in California that are coming into this, it's not because I believe they love agave, but it's just that, the state cut off their water, so they were looking for an easy crop to grow. But again, I always
Wow.
tell them it wasn't necessarily for the water because if it was for the water, they'd be growing cactus.
Yeah.
They chose agave, I believe, in my opinion, because it was already a proven system of making profit from agave spirits. And, I have a lot of opinions about that, but that's just kind of what they
Yeah.
what they chose, I believe, because if it was for water, I give an example. I work with several aloe farmers, and they're making spirits out of aloe. You could grow that in a year. You could
Mm.
grow cactus in a year and make prickly pear spirits. So if it was for water, they would have chose much more water tolerant crops than agave. Actually, agave is a very water tolerant crop, but not like cactus
Mhm.
or some of those crops. So.
Wow, that's great. Oh, I think Myra also wanted to know, you said that your family comes from Jalisco.
Yeah.
Um, how many like years have they been doing this?
So my family, like, I was born in Jalisco, and my family still actively farms agave in Jalisco. But as I mentioned, agave for my family isn't very profitable because they do a monoculture. So, I have my own opinions that I've been trying to get them to do stuff differently, but I'm not the leader in that organization, so I kind of just put my 2 cents and they do whatever, right? But
And which
my
kind?
point is, like, they make most of their money off of bell peppers, off of cattle, different types of
Mm.
industries that, most of that stuff's going to the United States. Agave is still just for my family more kind of like we're just keeping the tradition alive. We've done it for, I can go back to my grandpa and know that we farmed agave since my grandpa, but I'm starting to the more I'm in this realize that like even like my grandpa migrated to Jalisco when he was a young man from Zacatecas, and I know now that even his father was growing agave in Zacatecas. So, we're 3 generations in Jalisco, but there's probably further generations that went back in Zacatecas, also making tons of agave spirits because my grandpa, when he came to Jalisco, he actually was farming probably like around a dozen different agave species, which was a little weird for Jalisco at that point. So I always wondered
Mm.
like why was he doing that, and like then when I found out he came from Zacatecas, a traditional mezcal region, I was like, oh well, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because they weren't focusing on one type of agave. Yeah.
Um, I have a question. So I wanted to ask this. When you first started or had the idea of becoming an agave farmer, was there some sort of an alliance already or an organization out there when you started or
No.
education or anything?
No, I mean, I pretty much when I started farming in 2016, like at that point, I had been gardening for a few years already and had my own gardening company, and I still do. But I, had only known one type of agave from Jalisco, and then my grandpa, I would talk with him in the United States, and we'd, drive around different places in Northern California, and I'd be like, "Yo, look at this agave, I know it's this name from the garden," and he'd be like, "Oh, we use that in Jalisco for this or that," and I started learning different types of agave uses, right? So that was the interesting part, for me trying to see like, okay, now, in these gardens, there's not one type of agave. I started seeing, 200 type of agaves. And then, sometimes I was building, expensive gardens for people, and a hillside of agave that I would put even 100 different species, right? So
Hmm.
I started familiarizing myself with all of these different species, and I started managing the gardens that were drought tolerant. They had all these agave and cactus and arid plants like yuccas and Dacilarians, and that's why I started getting interested in them and as like further. But then through the gardening, I started coming to a weird position because I wanted to like farm to create spirits in 2016, and then I obviously was gonna, I started planting all my agave, but I was very far out from making any type of spirits, right? So in the gardens, I started coming across a lot of different gardens that had tons of different mature agave. Sometimes I'd come across a hillside that, they hadn't done any landscaping or gardening on it for like 30 years, and it was full of like 20 or 30 different types of agaves and just
Wow.
hybridizing, like growing. And, LA really is a mecca for agave. It can, with just the rain, grow amazingly, and it doesn't have snow or
And what
frost.
which
So,
which
sorry, what
agaves
was
did
that?
you start? Which agaves did you start?
The
Yeah.
first agaves I started farming were Moriana, agave americana, agave tequiliana, and then pulquero agaves like and apisagas. But I didn't you know have like any experience with distilling at that point, right? So it was just like a passion project because I was making my money from gardening. I just had bought a farm, and then I was like, well, let's start trying to see what we can do with it. So I would take essentially all of the plants that I would before throw away and take to the dump. I would fill up a truck and pay $500 to take this to the dump, and it would all be agave and cactus and different types of stuff. And then I started taking all that to a farm now that I bought because I was tired of paying money to throw away stuff that I was like, I'm gonna have to buy this in the future for my farm, right? So
Yeah. And
I brought lots of different species, you could say in that point, probably up to like 50, but I started actually trying to like work all of the mature agave, right? So I couldn't bring back a 500-pound agave Americana pina. So I just literally would harvest it on site, bring back the pina with me, and bring back all of the babies too. So how
wow.
I got a lot
And
of experience in using those agaves prior to ever having a crop for my farm.
wow. So we have a question from one of our viewers, Amigos del Maguey. He says, in what location are you growing agaves?
Right now, I'm growing agave in Lancaster, California, Western Lancaster, and then Eastern Lancaster, California, as well.
And
But I'm
in
trying to see. Uh, right now, I'm also actually bringing some agaves to Arizona, to a lot I have to try to start a farm there as well.
um I have another question. Are there any obstacles that are challenging to agave farmers in California right now?
Yeah, I would definitely say the biggest challenge is making um, something that's like affordable for people. For instance, if I can buy a $50 or $60 amazing tequila, or even spend $80 or 100 on an amazing mezcal, it's very hard to convince me personally, even though I'm a California farmer, to buy a California agave spirit, because some of them can be 150, $200 in the same volume comparisons. And then it's also, for instance, if they're using tequiliana or espadin or podotorum or species that are already commonly used in Mexico, I feel like it's almost just like a copycat. So like, why am I going to pay double or triple for something that's a copycat of a product that I could get from Mexico for way cheaper and higher quality? So the only spirits, really that I'm trying to drink a lot from California personally are, spirits that are like really unique. And, I think that, they have to kind of use agaves that I haven't really tried before, because we're not limited here at all with what type of agave you could use. So I think their biggest challenge is actually profitability, because if you cannot make an affordable spirit that consumers want, and that is their only way of making money right now, most of them believe, then most of them are in a lot of trouble because, I always tell people, most of the California agave farmers are planting a lot of agave. They're investing millions of dollars, and they don't even know what to do with the agave. Many of them are going to arrive on year 7 and start trying to market or look for avenues of selling this agave, which is a huge error in my opinion, because for instance, most businesses in the United States don't even make it to year 5. So to bet on a company making it to year 7 or 8 and having the first chance to try to find profitability, I've been very upfront and said the majority of them probably will fail. And that's not trying to be mean. That's just trying to tell them, be realistic.
Yeah.
So,
And I have a question, and excuse my not knowing a lot, but I'm still learning. I think in my family, the agaves we use, a lot of them are wild. So when it
yeah.
becomes farming here, like, how does it work? Like, do you bring this seed from Mexico? Will those agaves already growing here? Like, an educational
So
part on
hopefully
that.
they're not. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like
how,
that's kind of where I differ with a lot of the other type of farmers here, because I've had a lot of debate on this with people, but I don't believe that Californian farmers should be importing any seed from any country or any plants from any country, because we have here already the majority of the agave species that are available in Mexico, and we have the majority of them that are from Peru or from Central America, the United States agaves. And then essentially we have you could say the grand majority of the 200 wild species here already, for many of them decades or many of them centuries already. Some of them are in very, very small quantities. So for instance, if I have, a few cultivars of a rare agave, um, you know, I have to bring it out to seed and grow thousands of that seed to try to make it, a California born agave, right? Then now I can ship out to a bunch of people. But a lot of people are wanting to, they're impatient. So they're like, well, I could just buy all this cheap from Mexico. You know what I mean? But my problem with that is that, a lot of farmers, for instance, I could give an example of one farmer I know, he has imported, hundreds of thousands of plants, almost 500,000 plants from Mexico at a historic price low in Mexico, right? So Espadin and Tequiliana is on the floor today, a historical low. It's under 5-10 cents a kilo. So I believe it's kind of like taking advantage of that, because for instance he could have bought those agave from a California nursery that grew them from seed here, from agaves that came from California, and then he could have brought up California farmers with him, but he decided to basically take advantage, in my opinion, of Mexican farmers to get cheap genetic material, right? So I believe the way to grow California agave is to use the agave that we have within our own nurseries, within our own gardens, our own systems here, and expand on that. And
Yeah.
where I was going is that we have hundreds and thousands of agave hybrids that aren't even available in any other place but California, because we have some of the best breeders. I personally have
Wow.
made over 12 species that nobody has because I haven't put them for sale. You know what I mean?
And you're
So,
making these
and I know
species.
many people like that. Yeah, I know people that put me to shame. Like there's people who have made, 100+ hybrids, and that's the fun part about agave, trying to combine stuff that might be very, like a lot of the Mexican agave. I tell people they're very scared, like, oh, a lot of the Mexican agave is coming to the United States and they're just going to colonize their agave. And I tell them, well, you know what? There's really a small section of California, which is coastal and central California, that can grow those Mexican agaves. The rest of the United States cannot grow those agaves. They're going to have to get agaves from me that are like the United States native, that are very cold hardy, right?
Yeah.
Because when I'm shipping agave to Tennessee or to Nebraska or to Texas or to Hawaii, Hawaii is actually tropical, or to Maine or wherever, these cold places, I'm not shipping Mexican agave. I'm shipping United States bred agave, right? Because those are the only things that could take 2 feet of snow, negative 20 Fahrenheit. I mean, majority of Mexican agave at 30 Fahrenheit will die. And past Central California, you go east or you go north, none of that is available for Mexican agave actually to grow. So I think a
Wow.
lot of those fears are overwarranted, because what will proliferate in the United States actually will be those hybrids, those United States natives. It won't be Mexican plants, unfortunately. Because I'm Mexican, I wish I could grow the stuff I grow in Jalisco, but it's not possible.
And I think that's something important for me is just having the respect. I mean, I'm really big on, I was also raised in Mexico, and I know a lot of people that, feel like, the agaves are from Mexico, but then people forget that California was Mexico at one point.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yeah,
I'm asking
definitely. And,
agaves that
that's
grow.
where the history is crazy because it's like, I'm a historian and I know a lot of the treaties that gave California to the United States. And I know the controversies behind them. Like a lot of the generals that signed those treaties were actually ousted by the Mexican government. So it's like we were signing, he was signing over land that he had no power over, to be honest with you. But
Yes.
the point is California is the United States today. But as a Mexican, I realized like, yo, we've taken back California with no bullets. We literally bought it all. You know what I mean? Now half of California is Mexican or Mexican American, and we own tons and tons of property. So
Yeah.
we didn't have to go to war to get it back. We literally just bought it.
And the funny part is that I was taken to Mexico when I was very young. So actually, I went to elementary in Mexico, and I heard the history
Yeah.
from the Mexicans. And then when I came here back to
Yeah.
California, I heard the history of the United States side, and it's so
Just,
different. So
yeah.
I
That's
feel like we definitely
where the
forget
stuff is
that.
interesting because I studied a lot of U.S. history and a lot of Mexican history, and it's like how what you were just saying. It's like two different views on a lot of the wars that were going on. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question from Fabiola
Nah,
Raya. Fabio
yeah,
Raya.
that's my
Yeah. He said, "Hi, Steve. Do you know if anyone in California is planting agaves for sugars?"
specifically for sugars. What do you what do you mean by sugars, Fabio? Are you thinking of a specific type of use? Because most of them are planting them for, I would say, alcohol, right? So they're prioritizing sugars, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly what he's asking there with in terms of sugars. But Fabio's a PhD agave researcher in Brazil. He's a cool dude. You should follow him.
Nice.
so the habits that you're growing, it actually people are using them to create spirits because
Yeah.
it's not called tequila. Tequila que
No,
muy
it
bien.
can't be. Yeah.
It's just spirits that I know that one like Manny, he has his own brand, and I believe they're California agaves, correct?
Yeah.
But there was a question in regards to I think you asked Christina, right? Can you tell us more brands? So I guess Amigos del Maguey said Shelter Spirits is making some quality
Hmm.
agave spirits in Northern
Yeah,
Cali,
totally.
and then also Hano Spirits,
Yeah,
and then we
I know both of those.
have on it. Your thoughts, could introducing Mexican agave to California ecosystem lead you to unintended consequences such as invasive species, such as issues or soil degradation? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that word.
Degrade,
Degradation, yeah.
degradation.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're not
No,
not
that's fine.
educated on these
That's a
words.
good one. Yeah, I
Well,
mean, all of these brands, I believe, in California are bringing out something that's okay. I just, once again, the price thing is kind of where I think they need to work on, and if there's only a small amount of agave that's available, then that price won't come down for a long time. So, I believe there needs to be more farmers, but
Mm,
that's just a personal opinion, right?
opinion.
Because maybe they think the price is right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But going to
Um,
the second question that they had about invasive species issues and soil degradation, I mean, that's actually some of the stuff that I'm trying to prevent, right? Because like I mentioned, I'm from Jalisco and I'm Mexican. And when I tell people often that when I drive through Jalisco as a young adult, 18, 19, I would look at a hillside of blue agave and I would be like, this is one of the most beautiful things ever, right? And today, when I drive that same route, or any route where I see a blue hillside of agave or just a field of blue agave, I sometimes like get really sad because I know, exactly the ecosystem that was destroyed to get that, right? So a lot of these places that I used to hike as a kid or as a young adult, they've turned into blue agave fields when it used to be a beautiful forest that had a lot of wild agave, a lot of wild plants and cacti and all types of stuff. And, I realized that, for instance, I'm trying to promote people to get into agave farming in California. But as a Jalisciense, a lot of the environmentalists that I talk to, they hate agave because they're like, look, you're destroying
It's
our
killing the
aquifer systems,
ecosystem.
you're destroying our rivers, you're destroying the
Hmm.
ecosystem, you don't pay people right, like the labor
It's
issues are
not
gigantic, like
self-sustainable.
tons of chemicals that are going into the soil and destroying, people and soil and all that. And look, I agree with them. I tell them, look, it's not agave that's the issue. It's the management system really the issue. If you put a monoculture, the only way you can sustain that system is through cheap labor, is through chemicals, is through heavy irrigation. They're not doing what my grandpa, what maybe Myra's family, or any of these older families in Mexico were trying to grow agave in polyculture systems with trees and shrubs and the natives, and it was an ecosystem. It wasn't just a one type of plant, right? So where I'm going with this is that I see how the destruction of the ecosystem has happened, and the destruction of people in Jalisco and even in Oaxaca. These are two of the most heavily forested states in Mexico, and they're being developed at alarming rates. And I don't want that same system to come to California. I'm trying to get people to adopt permaculture systems that are, the 1% of farms in Mexico that are, these small traditional systems that are continuing to actually improve the environment and not destroy it, right? Like they pay
Yeah.
people right, and they're actually trying to take care of stuff because the majority of agave farming in Mexico, I tell people 99% of it is a monoculture that's hurting the environment. So I don't want to bring that to the United States or to California, right? So going to her point, there's a ton of consequences that will happen introducing these species like Tequiliana and Espadín in monoculturistic management styles in the United States. And that's kind of why I've started to come out of the shadows, you could say, and try to have a bigger voice. Because when I was just by myself in 2016, I was like, well, everybody's doing permaculture of agave in California. This is great. But when the industrialists started coming in and putting monoculture, I realized that there was two choices that California has right now. Choosing a system like mine or choosing a system like Jalisco and Oaxaca's monoculture. And a lot of the big agriculturalists coming into this would like the later, not the former. And
Hmm.
that's a huge issue for me that I'm spending a lot of money to try to
Yeah.
combat because I don't want that to hurt our state here.
And for those that don't know what monoculture is, it's an agriculture. Monoculture refers to the practice of cultivating a single crop species or tree variety in a specific area, often leading to reduce biodiversity and increase vulnerability to pests and disease. And
Yeah.
yesterday you were talking about a disease in agaves,
Yeah.
correct? And you said that it's
Yeah.
already happened about 3 times.
I was mentioning how, like, my family in the past and the majority of Jaliscan farmers have dealt with, plagues of fungi or of different insects like the weevils. And, 3 or 4 different cases, it's actually eliminated up to, 20 to 40%. In some regions, it might eliminate actually, overall, it might have eliminated 20 to 40% of all agave tequiliana in Jalisco at a certain point, but in certain regions it might have actually decimated 90% of it. And this is because the majority of agave tequiliana is all clones coming from one type of genetic pool. So when one plague or one weevil or one pest realizes the way to annihilate this system, it just spreads everywhere. And when agave is on the floor in Jalisco, for instance, what's happening is a lot of farms are actually being abandoned because there's no money in it. So these farms are starting to rot in place. And a lot of the rotting is the stuff that's actually creating the diseases. And people go to these farms or walking in them and they spread that to different farms and it just goes everywhere. So, a lot of biocontrols are starting to just be destroyed in Mexico. And I'm seeing the potential today for another one of those plagues, right? Like, the monoculture system is very dangerous. I mean, you look at bananas, a lot of that is a monoculture and it's being destroyed. And a more recent example might be Florida citrus, where they've lost up to 95% of their production because of greening, right? So this is not something that's unique to agave. This is just actually how monoculture gets murked by nature time to time, because it just doesn't like this system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have a question from Planet Mezcal. By the way, if you guys don't follow Planet Mezcal, go ahead and follow him. He's also very knowledgeable in
Yeah,
agaves
yeah.
in general. He said, Amigo Steve, can we get pulque from Salamena and
Damiana.
that are born, Samelania, that are born in California? See, I need to know how to say these words. Can you
Yeah,
say
I mean,
Salminani?
Salmiana.
Salmiana.
Damiana. Mhm. Yeah, you can
That are
you
born.
can get pulque from it, but I mean, it's like, for instance, when I'm making, like, I'm more of a pulquero actually. Like, my grandpa taught me more about pulque than spirits, so I actually like pulque more than any type of spirits, and like most of my production, I'm actually trying to aim towards pulque versus actual spirits. So you can make pulque in California. But that may not be the case in 5 to 10 years. So we may need to think of a different type of terminology, because, as a Mexican, I honestly believe that there might come a day where Mexico is pissed off that people are making a ton of pulque in California, and they might want to try to make a denomination for it. So I think from that, like, now, like, oh well, I don't want to try to just keep calling my stuff pulque. So you can make the same stuff out of it, but if you call it pulque and a lot of Mexicans follow you, just be ready for the hate, because it will probably come if you call it pulque.
What would you tell someone that, because there's a lot of, and I include myself, Mexican people that feel like, agave is original from Mexico.
Yeah,
And we talked about California being part of Mexico, but, just in the culture, like this being taken from Mexico, because Mexico is just, that's what they're known for, from agave, for making tequila, making
yeah.
mezcal. What would you tell someone, or what would you say to someone that thinks that way, or just, I'm just curious to know.
Well, I think a lot of the people that think that way, I think that they have a lot of points in that. You know what I mean? Like, to give I help a lot of farmers that have dragon fruit cultivated on their farms, and they tell me, oh, like, all of the dragon fruit is from Vietnam or from Southeast Asia, because there's millions of acres of this out there growing. And I tell them, like, no, you're crazy. This is from Mexico. So my point is, we start to lose, like, people start to associate this plant, with another country. And for instance, sisal agave came from southern Mexico, and now it's grown more in Africa than it is traditionally, in any region in Mexico. So I mean, now they, you could say, have taken the leadership position of fiber production, right? Which I think is kind of sad, because it's like Mexico, for instance. I tell people, ask me all the time, why is agave on the floor? And I tell them, well, the only way of making money. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make alcohol, I want to make fiber products, I want to make energy products, I want to make, all types of different things. And whoever has the highest bid, I will sell to. I really do not care where it goes. And in Mexico, the problem with losing the fiber industry, with losing the forage industry of agave, losing all of these different products that were made from agave to other countries, this is money and economics that could be in Mexico and promoting and growing Mexico. And now people are actually associating those plants that are Mexican with other countries. And so I think the fear is warranted. That's the whole point of trying to discuss this stuff, because if you're going to take agave out of Mexico, it needs to be at least, like, discussed, right? I don't think that it should be done so easily, right? Like how it is today. Because I'll give you an example. Like, a lot of people, for instance, in Mexico, are shipping agave now to Australia, shipping agave to, Europe, to different countries in Latin America. And, it's not such a black and white answer as well, because if agave is on the floor today, where would it be if those 5 to 10 million agave plants did not leave those Mexican farmer hands? Where
Mm,
would Mexico be in those small little towns without these millions of dollars coming in from that agave?
yeah.
So my point is, banning agave exports sounds like a good theory. Like I even would be like, oh, that's something maybe I support, but it's not such an easy thing, and you need to have these discussions so maybe it's done right. So for instance, if I believe if there's a rare agave in Mexico and nobody's growing it in Mexico and some American wants to buy a small package of seeds, I believe he should be able to and be able to grow, a little 100 pack of seeds out and, take 20 years to patiently grow this for California. Do I believe he should be able to import 500,000 plants or millions of seed and undercut the Mexicans? No. So there's different ways of responsibly, I believe, allowing people to buy it and still Mexicans prosper. But as I mentioned, it's not a black and white thing, and a lot of the people that ask for that export ban of agave in Mexico, the Mexicans will be the first ones to fight you on that because they're actually profiting from it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I have a lot of questions.
Yes, there's a lot of questions.
Okay, so with Flor is asking, should California farmers label their agave products differently to distinguish
Yeah.
them from Mexican-grown agave?
Yeah.
Amigos and Maguey said several of the brands in California specifically put Cali-grown agave in their bottles.
Yes. And then
Yeah.
Mike says, Steve, so true about the over pollination of growing agaves in different regions of Jalisco. So much there are laws in place to protect trees and other species are not protected. And then
Yeah.
Mezcal
Yes.
Team said, should California focus on growing only species that grow native in caña instead of bringing endemic wild species from different regions in Mexico?
Um, so I mean, I guess I'll just go in order. I'm looking at the chat now too. So
So
um,
Flor said label, I guess, agave products differently to distinguish them from Mexico-grown agave. So I think
yeah,
Amigos gave a
I
respond that.
definitely believe that should be the case. I don't believe that anyone that picks up a bottle should confuse a California agave spirit for a mezcal or tequila. So I mean, any consulting job that I do for a farmer, like I've almost like I need to make a shirt or something or a hat because it's literally gotten to the point where it's like so annoying because they refer to California agave spirits as tequila or mezcal, and I have to correct people like 1,000 times a day, like no, what you produce here will not be called that. There is a legal denomination. So I believe it's not good confusions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think you should. I was okay, and
Okay,
then it says should California focus on only that grow caña, bringing endemic wild species from different regions in Mexico.
Um, yeah, I believe, like I was mentioning, Californians should try to focus on California native agaves, right? Because those are going to be the species that people, right, that perform the best here. So, for instance, how I was mentioning, I'm able to dry farm and not utilize irrigation. Well, that can only happen because I'm using agave americana that's been naturalized here and is native to Texas. I've been using agave utensis, which is native to California. I've been using a lot of native stuff here, right? So a lot of the hybrids and Mexican agave, I'm having to water a lot. So, for instance, I'm trying to further and further prioritize stuff that's only from California or at least has been here multiple generations. Because I'll give an example. Even a hybrid or a Mexican endemic agave, if it's been here for 100 years, it started to develop here. Now, if I import from straight Mexico, that plant's going to straight die if I put it in the desert because it just can't take it, right? So I think definitely the focus should be California natives, and I think California hybrids. And the hybrids that are being developed here are coming from our nurseries and our breeders. So if we grow California native plants and plants that are only coming from our nurseries, then we're going to bring up the whole state with us, right? Because, obviously, I'm Mexican. I would love for the money to go to Mexico, but I want to bring up California as well, right? So I think that we should be buying California agave. We shouldn't be using, uh, any really Mexican imported agave. People, for instance, I tell them, if you're able to get a $10 or $20 plant of an agave from Mexico, most of the time to pass USDA and border inspections, they cannot have roots and they can't have a lot of different features that are present in California agave, right? So I give an example. If I buy an agave tequiliana, or if I buy an agave, any agave from Mexico here, that agave will be a 5 gallon for say $15 or $20. It'll come with 2 feet of roots. It'll already be able to go into the farm system instead of taking 6 to 12 months to develop roots. So I actually do not understand why we're importing Mexican agave, because there's cheaper agaves available in California that are higher quality. Because, for instance, when you have to pass the border, you actually have to, chemically maintain a lot of that agave to basically guarantee that no fungus, no plagues, or nothing is coming into the country. So also now, I believe it's not a good start for a farm if you're literally just planting thousands of chemically treated agave. You're starting off on the wrong foot, to be honest with you. But yeah, just long way to answer. Yeah, I think we should focus on our own agave.
One of the questions that was kind of asked, you kind of answered it already. It says, they're growing blue Webers in Northern Cali. What's your opinion on that practice? You kind of already answered.
Maybe.
Perfect.
Well,
I have a
it's
question.
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna mention something about that actually. Uh, there's very few ways to genetic test agave, and I believe a lot of the agave that's being sold as Blue Weber is actually being misidentified for
Oh,
different type of hybrids, and I think there's actually a lot of liabilities behind that, because if I sell a plant on any online site and I tell you it's an agave, for instance, an agave salmiano, or if I tell you it's an agave utensis, it better be that, or you can get your refund, right? And I think there's a lot of liabilities if, uh, how do I say it? I think people who are not experts on agave should not be trying to sell agave that they have zero clue on the identification of that actual agave. Put
yeah,
it that way.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's perfect too. So you're in California, you have your farm. Is there an alliance protecting the agaves in California right now? I know there was a law that passed, or a law that they're trying to fight. Can you please talk about that law a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, as far as I know, there's the California Agave Council in California and the California Agave Alliance, which was, I'm a part of and was recently formed like maybe less than 6 months ago. But our alliance was actually formed in kind of like in a speedy effort after the passage of this bill, because I alerted a lot of the community to the issues that I saw with it, right? So and then people started getting really freaked out. So essentially, I believe that this bill, which is California Assembly Bill 2606, is a creation. Is trying to begin the framework of a creation of a regulatory body for agave, which I believe will lead to larger consolidation and only allow big agriculture to succeed in California, which will lead to pretty much the majority of California being a monoculture that harms the ecosystem. So if they're taxing us every year for agave, the agave that will be prioritized will be 4 and 5 year agave, espadín and tequilanas, not 20 or 30 year agaves. They're having a lot of issues, in my opinion, with having to report who you're selling your agave to. And I believe that, as a Jalisciense, to be honest with you, I grow agave in California because I didn't want to deal with the CRT. I didn't want to deal with the politics behind a lot of that over regulatory body. And I have a lot of issues with them. And I decided it was just better to avoid them all outright, to be honest with you. So that's why I decided it's probably better to do it in California. But my point is, I believe this would make the CRT look like child's play. Like the CRT today, everybody feels it, and it's like this super over regulatory body. Well, the California Agave Commission, if it's formed, I believe it would be like I said, it would make the CRT look like child's play, or the CRM look like child's play. It would be a very over regulatory body, and I started trying to get a lot of my friends, kind of not angry about it, but just knowledgeable about it. So then, we kind of all decided, well, we need to be a group to kind of attack this efficiently. So we started California Agave Alliance, and you can visit CaliforniaAgaveAlliance.com if you want to know a little bit more about us. But we're essentially just trying to allow California to be developed in the correct way, a permaculture way that's respecting agave. And we're actually trying to reach out to a lot of indigenous groups in Mexico and the United States, because, a lot of their voices haven't been heard. And a lot of the people in our group are women, and, people of, minorities, and, actual Mexicans that, like I always tell people, I'm like, I feel like right now it's just a bunch of old white people telling traditional Mexican farmers what to do in California, which is a problem because most of them don't know even what the hell they're talking about, and they're trying to tell me how to grow agave, which I won't allow. So, I'm trying to fight it through a grassroots movement, but I believe that that may not be successful. So, I got the funds to fight it legally if it comes to that.
Oh, I can't hear you, Christina. Um, so I'll ask the question. So Florida's asking, does producing agave spirits in California undermine the cultural heritage and authenticity of mezcal and tequila?
I would say if they're using, like I mentioned, these same species, definitely, because yeah, I tell people, like, if you hear big agriculture in Mexico, big agriculture in the United States will make them look once again like child's play. You know what I mean? And for instance, today mezcal is around $900 million of United States sales. You know, I could see as a consultant, I've worked for farmers that have, 5, 10,000 acre farms. I can readily see how a dozen California companies could easily be pumping out within 5 years several $1 billion worth of espadín or tequiliana agave spirits. And if they actually produce more agave spirits with the same agaves than Mexico is, I believe it will dilute the brand of mezcal and tequila. So
Mm,
once again, I believe that California should be focusing on different types of agaves, and that's something that I believe Mexicans should. As I mentioned, I don't think that it should be allowed to import 500,000 agaves of those types into the United States. So
yeah,
but that's not up for me to decide, as I mentioned, because I'm not the Mexican government.
yeah,
Like, people complain to me all the time, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm actually telling people not to do it. But if you want to know my opinion as a consultant, or as a business owner, if I had the money in Mexico and I didn't like this, I would be going indirectly funding politicians and trying to actually pass legislation behind it. I wouldn't be getting mad at the California agave farmers. It's a waste of time, in my opinion.
wow, no, yeah.
We don't hold the
We're gonna,
power.
that's true. We have two questions. We're gonna ask two last questions. One of them is, do you guys work with Mexican agave farmers? And the other one is, what are some good companion plants for agaves? Also, are there any culinary uses for agave?
Um, So the first one, yeah, I do. I work with a lot of different Mexican agave farmers. I've actually shipped a lot of genetics into Mexico. I mean, I've probably shipped 40 different type of agave species that weren't available in Mexico to Mexico. So now a lot of Mexican agave farmers are farming stuff that were uniquely Californian or United States, or hybrids created here. And I think that it's exciting to try to see, because I've shipped a lot of plants to my hometown, even in Guadalajara, or different regions where where my family's from. And so I personally am working with a lot of different Mexican agave farmers, and more so on not not so much selling plants to them, but actually trying to learn from them because a lot of the knowledge on agave is in Mexico. It's not in the United States. You know what I mean? I talk to a lot of, for instance, people around the world about agave, but I would say the large majority of people that I learned from are Mexican, right? So I'm talking to people in Jalisco. I can give an example, like the person that you were talking about on the live. His name is Luis, and he's actually kind of like me. He's grown a bunch of different rare agaves, and you know, like I have probably over 150 different type of agaves, and he's probably got like over 100 different type of agave species in Jalisco, and he's kind of doing the same thing I am, trying to get these different agave species into farmer hands in Jalisco, and some of them have already distilled these species, like agave valenciana, and made award-winning spirits, right? So what me and him talk about a lot is trying to bring back the tradition of stuff in Jalisco that we lost, right? Because in my opinion, I think that Mezcal region, Jalisco should be a Mezcal region, and my grandpa, and when he was alive, I would tell him, oh, I just made some agave spirits. He's like, oh, you see some mezcales, and I'm just like, this is a
Yeah.
continuation, you could say, of
Yeah.
what the way that we were calling it, and I would always correct him. I'm like, no, it's just it's agave spirits. Like, don't go
Yeah.
down that road,
Yeah.
But we would my point is, in Jalisco for hundreds of years they referred to what they were doing as mezcales. So the
Hmm.
fact that now there's a denomination that only allows you to work with one type of agave, that's actually where a lot of the issues started to come out of monoculture and stuff, because in my grandpa's time they had a dozen different agaves and fruit trees and different type of pine trees and shrubs and natives, and it was a nice little ecosystem like me or my homie Luis has got in Jalisco. And we're just trying to help a lot of the different farmers, to be honest, no matter what country they're in, to farm agave in a better
Yeah.
system, because
That's
there's a
that's
lot
one
of
of
issues with it.
that's one thing I like that it seems like all of you guys are trying to really help each other and
Yeah,
collectively grow,
like
not only in knowledge but to teach what's going
Fabio,
on.
he's from Brazil. I talked to friends in India who are working on agave biomethane and biofuels, and Fabio's working, in projects on agave biofuels. And my point is, I try to innovate a lot in agave in California, so that it doesn't look like I'm just stealing like freaking knowledge from Mexicans or from Brazilians or Indians. Like when I talk to these people, they're actually very excited to talk with me because they're learning from the experiments that I'm doing. I'm learning from the experiments they're doing, and we're improving it, right? So while the basis of my farm may try to be something traditional, like my grandpa was doing in Jalisco, we're innovating a lot, right? Like I told you, I have probably over 150 different type of agaves that I have in greenhouses or on my farm or in different homes. And my goal with all of that, honestly, is to try to save a lot of the genetics that I think will be lost, because
Wow.
as a Jalisciense, for instance, I give an example. My favorite agave, which is agave Mariana, used to be very common where I was born in Agualuco and Mercado. And today you walk around the same regions where I saw them pretty commonly, and there's none of them.
Yeah.
So we're starting to lose the majority of our agave genetics. And to be honest with you, I've had this debate a lot with people. I don't give a crap if you grow it in Antarctica or you grow it in Mexico or you grow it in America. If you're growing a rare agave and you're adding to the population of that agave that's under risk, that's okay with me.
Yeah.
I don't care where it is.
Wow.
So that's why I've sent a lot of rare agaves that are under threat in the United States to Mexico. Because if Americans don't want to grow these agaves and boost the populations, then you know what? I'm going to give it into the hands of somebody who will boost the population. Because a lot of the Vilmoriana that I've grown, I've actually shipped to Jalisco, and now it's like I'm repatriating the
Yeah.
Jalisciense agave, and now they're regrowing it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because they lost that natural system of it. And
Wow.
I think
now,
I think at the end of the
yeah,
day,
it's
what's
tough.
important, the respect for the culture. I think
Yeah.
acknowledging, that this came from our ancestors, and being respectful from it. So I'm very I learned a lot today, and I think we need to have you back because
I
there was
was
so many.
just gonna say that we need to have you back because I feel there's a lot of questions unfortunately we're not going to be able to get to.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
It's
told
all good.
Myra, I think this is going to be a good one. I think this is going to be a good one because I feel like a lot of the Articuno
The chat got
followers,
good
Mezcal
questions too,
followers, yeah, they're going to love
yeah,
this. But Steve, we want to thank you so much for once again
yeah.
taking your time to coming on. I feel like everybody had a great time listening to you. I know I did. I learned a whole lot. But thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on. We're definitely going to have you back on. Trust me. We need to do this again. This has to be a redo because there's so much information.
yeah.
Towards the end of our show,
Agave,
we do,
super broad
yeah,
topic. Yeah,
towards the end of our show, we do like to leave with a motivational quote or something that you, I don't know, wake up and just it's in your mind that this, something that you just l- l- think about regularly. So, is it any quote or any mantra that you would like to tell us today?
yeah. I'm not too sure. I guess just respect the plants that you're growing. You know what I mean? Because I think the biggest problem in farming today is that people put number signs behind the plants. They're not looking at the plants as like actual living beings and stuff. And I think when you are looking at a plant only as a money sign, then you're never going to respect that plant.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
nice.
I just respect plants more.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do you want to go, Myra?
Go
Or
ahead.
yeah, okay. So mine, it's more about going back to history. I feel like the history plays a big part on our culture, and I feel like we need to know our history to know who we are. So my quote is, the only thing new in the world is the history you don't know. And I feel that earlier we were talking about, we are in a country that originally was from Mexico. So let's not forget that. Let's not forget that no matter if
Yeah,
we're in Mexico or here in California, we're home. We are home, and this is our home, and period.
That's
totally. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, and I think I always get a quote that kind of I look for quotes that are meaningful. So today I put I selected the one that says look deep into nature and then you will understand everything better. And I
Yeah,
think nature connects to our
you know,
people. To go ahead.
that's crazy, that you brought that up because like I was just having like a 2 hour conversation prior to this with a consulting call with a farmer. And then, I was just telling him like, nature is our teacher. Like the all the problems that you're having is because you're not observing nature, dude,
Mhm.
you know? And I was like, I come here in 2 days and I observe your farm and I know all the solutions. I'm like, you're not looking at nature, so you're messing up a lot, right? So
Yes.
yeah, really pertinent.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you so much, and we are definitely gonna bring you back so we could do part two of this conversation
Yeah, thank
because
you
there were
for
so many
having me.
questions that were not answered. But thank you, everybody, for joining. It was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and hopefully, we could do this again soon.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Steve.
thank you so much
Thank you,
both for
everybody.
having me.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thanks everyone who came by as well.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.